My husband got my client pregnant, so I got pregnant for another man. Story time. I married my husband when he was not so stable, but because I come from a very stable home, my parents decided to give us a house that we could move in together. Let me set the scene for you. In my family, when one of us gets married, my parents usually give us a house because this is a new couple trying to start life. So they give us a house to help support ourselves. And luckily, my husband wasn't so stable when we got married. So my parents gave us a house within Lusaka to live in. The house was handed to us both, but on paper, the house is mine. As a bachelor, my husband lived in a bedsitter, but obviously, this is not very convenient for a couple. So since my parents gave us a house, the plan was to move. All that my husband and I needed to do in this house was furnish it because everything was completely done. When we were being given the house, my husband was very agreeable of this idea and nothing seemed to be the problem. Before we got engaged, my husband usually said jokingly that he would rather we stay in our separate places. We looked for a house for me to live in because I was living with my parents before marriage, and then he would continue living where he was living. For me, we would always laugh about it. It never came up as a serious conversation, so I assumed these were jokes. But then when my parents gave us this house, after the marriage, my husband told me he prefers continuing to stay where he was staying, in the bedsitter, and I should live in the house that my parents have given me. He clearly said it's your house, because if it was ours, my names would be on it, meaning his names. So I told him, obviously, his names are not on it because it's from my parents, and anything can happen. Marriage is not final. But as long as we are still a couple, the house belongs to both of us. So he said he wasn't comfortable with that, and he preferred that he continues to live where he was, and I moved into the house that my parents gave us. Genuinely thought this conversation was under the rugs until he brought it up again when we were supposed to move. He suggested that he need to live in the house that my parents have given to us and he would continue living where he was. Bear in mind, we're both in Lusaka. So for me, this didn't make much sense. Why are we still living separately when we are married? So he said, no, just live in your parents' house because it would be easier for me to see you that way, but we'll live in our separate homes. This was a very weird request from my husband, and I didn't know how to tell my parents. So for me, I assumed it's the fact that he wasn't comfortable with the fact that the house was in my name, because he mentioned it initially saying if it was our house, it would have been in his name as well. So I went to my parents and asked them if it was okay for me to put the house in both of our names so that it could make him comfortable. My parents said it was my house and I could do whatever I pleased. However, I didn't immediately change the names on the title deed after my parents approved because I wanted to see if my husband could also compromise because this is my property and I was also trying to protect my own interests. So the few months that I was still trying to decide whether to change the title or not, I started living in the house that my parents had given me. And as the marriage was surviving actually. He used to come by almost every day. He would eat at my place and then he would go and sleep at his house. But obviously, society was already questioning what was going on. So it was making me uncomfortable and I decided to give it a thought and change the names on the title deed. This was approximately a year after marriage. In that 1 year that I had lived alone, I established my own business, became a hairstylist because the house was big, so part of it became a salon. At the time that the title was changing and everything, people had already known my new location. Initially, I used to do this at my parents' house, but now that I had my own house, the salon was now at home. When this process was done, my husband finally decided to move in with me and we started to live together. His behavior became very weird after this. My husband started to host house parties in our house with or without my consent, whether I was around or not, whether I knew about these parties or not. And this used to happen so frequently. And after those parties, most of the people at the party would actually sleep over. Remember, this was a big house. It was about a 4-bedroom house. So most of the people would actually sleep over. No matter what I said, my husband didn't listen. Whether I was around or not, my husband would host parties and people would really party. There would be music and we started getting into problems with the neighbors. Because I also had a salon in the same house, this started disturbing my line of work. My clients would be there and there would be loud music playing. And because mostly I deal with brides love to be in a quiet place because obviously they're already stressed. Why are you adding on to their stress? Oftentimes I'll try to tolerate it, but since it was affecting my work, this started causing tension between me and my husband. Bear in mind, I didn't know about this behavior all along. During the relationship, during me being his fiancé, I didn't know about it. I didn't even think he was a party person. He used to drink, yes, but I didn't know that he used to party like that to the extent of throwing house parties almost every day. As long as he's back from work, a party will start. Sometimes I was able to bear the parties, but the sleepovers would get to me because I would even find females sleeping over. I have never found him cheating, but at the sleepovers, we would also have females, his female friends. And this started to bother me so much because I started thinking, if we have children in this home, which rooms would they occupy? Because people are always sleeping in all the rooms that our children could probably sleep in. Every time I told him I was unhappy about this, he told me to understand that that's who he was and I shouldn't try to change him, but rather accept him as he is. As a way to deal with this issue, I decided to start trying to have a child. We had so many failed attempts, and my husband was aware of the fact that I was trying to get pregnant. So we would try, but then we had so many failed attempts. This went on for a while. We couldn't get pregnant. One Sunday, as usual, he was having his parties and I had a female client over. And now this is where the drama begins. This client of mine was very chatty, and the time that she came, most of the conversations we had were about home decor because both of us are enthusiasts of home decor. So we found that we had that common interest, and this is where most of our conversations were. So I had to go warm up water for me to wash her hair. After I left the room, upon coming back to the room, I found that my husband was there, saying hi to her and telling her once she's done with her hair, she's free to come for the party that he was having at the house on that day. I didn't want to seem like I was barging into their conversation or anything. I answered on her behalf rather, saying, no, I don't think, let's call her Christine. I don't think Christine will be interested. So Christine was like, no, actually, I'd love to come. So I'm like, why are you inviting my client for your party? This should be between you and your friends. Don't bring my business into this. I didn't say these words, but this is what went through my mind. So I was thinking, before I finish with her hair, I'll go talk to my husband so that he can probably come back and make an excuse so that she doesn't have to come to this party. When I'm done with my client's hair, I go back to my husband and tell him to come and talk to her so that she doesn't have to attend the party. Maybe make an excuse like maybe the party is, I don't know, cancelled or something. But then he tells me, why are you being so insecure? She's just a guest like any other guests at my party. But then in my head, I'm like, why are you interfering with my business? Because this is business and this somehow feeds us. Because remember, he's not as stable. This feeds us. So why are we playing with business? I avoid pushing too much or nagging because remember, my husband initially wasn't even staying with me because he wanted his peace at this point, I believe. So I don't want to nag much because I don't want to push him away. So I just say, oh, okay, if that's what you want. I go to my room and I rest because I never used to attend these parties. I'm not a party person and this is a matrimonial home. Why do we have all these things going on as if you're at a boarding house or something? I just let them do their thing. When the party is done, the days go on. So fast forward to what happened later. One night as we're about to go to bed, my husband tells me he's got a confession. So I'm like, can it wait till tomorrow? Because we usually do this thing where we say, I have a confession, and then you say what you feel your partner didn't do right or where you want them to improve. So he says, I have a confession. So I tell him, can't it wait until tomorrow? Because I was very tired on this day. So he tells me, no, it's urgent. I have to tell you now. Sorry, but you have to go to part 2. My husband got my client pregnant, so I got pregnant for another man, part 2. Because of how serious he seems, so I chose to give him a listening ear. Immediately, he tells me, I'm sorry I cheated on you. So I'm like, who did you cheat on me with? He tells me, it's someone you know. Immediately I hear that it's someone I know. I'm panicking. So I ask him, how close am I to that person? So he says, no, you're not very close actually, but it's someone you know. So I tell him, please tell me who this is. So he says, no, before I tell you her name, I need to tell you how deep this is. It's just not about the cheating. So he goes like, she's actually pregnant for me. Guys, at this point, I don't know whether to cry. I don't know what to do. I ask him, who is this person? Who did you get pregnant? And this is tough news for me because I had been trying to get pregnant for so long at this point, and then someone else is pregnant. It's like that woman has fulfilled my husband's wishes and I have failed him. He tells me it's the client you had that day, the one that I invited to the party. We started seeing each other and now she's pregnant. He does sound a bit remorseful, but not as remorseful as he probably could be. So I asked him, when did all this happen? Because all I knew is that she attended the party once, and after that, it's been months. It's been so long. So I even forgot about all that. But his parties, of course, have continued. So I asked him, when did this happen? And just the normal questions you would ask after you find out that you've been cheated on. When I hear this, I just pack up a few beddings and I go to the guest room because how do I even spend the night with a man who's telling me someone else is pregnant for him? And my client above everything. First of all, guy, you're not stable. My business helps feed both of us. He's working, but he's not so stable. So my business equally helps. And then now you're telling me a client is pregnant for you. Do you know what you're doing to my business? I get very upset. I go to the guest room because I can't even stand him at this point. I spent the whole night crying to myself and wondering why God hasn't answered my prayers and another woman is pregnant for my husband. We're barely 3 years into this marriage. The next morning, my husband is going for work. The first thing he does is comes to greet me in the guest bedroom. I don't answer because you don't care about me. Why are you even greeting me if you can get another woman pregnant? So after the greeting, he tells me, let's call the other girl who's pregnant. Let's call her Fatima. Fatima is actually coming to live with us because I can't afford to get her own apartment, and her parents said she has to move out of the house because she's pregnant. They can't keep a pregnant lady. Me, who's the owner of the pregnancy, I have to take care of her. My heart just breaks into many pieces at this point because she's pregnant, now she's moving in with us. I tell him, firstly, this is my parents' house, because remember, this house was given to me by my parents. This is my parents' house, and obviously I can't allow that. How can she move in with us? So he tells me, no, you've got no option. Remember, my name is also on the papers. I also have a right to make a decision on this house. At this point, I'm regretting even putting him on the title deeds because I'm thinking, was this his mission? I tried to plead with him to at least protect our marriage in everything that he's doing, in all his mess. Let him not include me. So I tell him, you know what? If you were able to afford to live alone before we started living together, the same money you used to pay for rent, pay for this girl's house rent and let her be there. She can't move into our house. So he tells me his decision is final and he's not changing it. Everything my husband tells me at this point completely breaks me. I don't even know what to do, but then I choose to call my parents because this is their house as well. I mean, they gave it to us. They need to know that another woman wants to move into the house that they gave us. So I tell them, my mom tells me to go back home and leave this man to whatever he wants to do. So I tell my mom, I can't live like that because my mom is a very soft woman. So I tell her, I can't leave my marriage just like that. I will fight this woman tooth and nail to get back my man. So during his lunch break at work, for sure, he comes back with Fatima. And Fatima is all smiles. She's pregnant, actually. It looks like maybe she's 4 months pregnant because I can see the baby bump a bit. My husband tells me, oh, this is Fatima. She's going to move in with us, like I had mentioned to you earlier. So I don't say anything, but I just keep quiet. My husband tells her, you can put your things in the master bedroom. So I was like, wait, hold on. What do you mean you can put your things in the master bedroom? So I told her, if you're going to live here with us, because of the baby, you can live in the guest room, but you're not going to move into the master bedroom. I actually questioned my husband, like, what are you doing? First of all, you're telling me you have a confession. Now she's moving into our room. What the hell? So he goes like, no, she wants to live in the master bedroom. What do you mean? A bed is a bed. You can easily sleep in the guest room. I'm like, this man is going nuts because this is my parents' house. So I leave him at that. And then, of course, as you can imagine, living with this woman becomes hell on earth for me. She's mistreating me. She expects me to do everything for her. Anything that goes wrong with her, my husband shouts at me. So I choose to take my mom's advice and I leave the house. Remember, this affects my business. So at this point, I'm not even operating. But I have a degree. So when I leave his house, I choose to go look for a job elsewhere. The day that I was looking for a job, the Yango driver that I booked ended up getting my number and he was also on his way to work. So Yango is like his part-time thing, but he also works. So he took me for work and from there we became friends because he saw how demoralized I was. And he asked me what was wrong, but I didn't explain. However, because obviously Yango, you get each other's numbers because the driver has to call you when they get home. For those who don't know what Yango is like Uber in Zambia. He tells me everything about him. We get to know each other and we start spending our time together. Actually, we start spending a lot of time together. Eventually, we start dating because my husband also tells me he's signing for a divorce and he wants to marry the other woman. Yeah. So he wants to divorce me and he's going to be with the other woman. So I also think, you know what, it's been some months and this guy is great, let me just move on. A few months down the line, me and this guy become intimate and it ends there. The next day, I text him. I was very upset that we became intimate. Remember, I'm not yet divorced, so legally I'm still married. I feel bad about this and this is not who I am. I tell myself this marriage should not break my morals. After that, I get a call from my husband. It's been like 8 months at this point. I get a call from my husband and he's crying bitterly, asking me to come back home. I just go check what's going on because remember, this was my husband for almost 3 years. I go back home to check what's happening. The first thing I notice is Fatima is not home. So I ask him, where is Fatima? He doesn't answer me. And then I stay there to see why he called me. After a few hours of silence, he tells me Fatima was actually pregnant for another man and she came there so that she can find money for her and her other man and the baby. So that baby is actually not mine. Tell him that he's meant to deal with, because at this point that has nothing to do with me. He says, please forgive me and whatnot. So I keep declining his requests. That day I went back home and I explained to the other guy that I met, the driver. I explained to him and he tells me, honestly, if you go back to that man, you're just going against your own principles. Cheating is bad, whether it comes from a man or a woman. So I take that man's advice and I choose to stay with him. Remember, we are already official with that other man. My husband, or soon to be ex-husband, gets my family involved in all this. He tells them how he wants to come back, and obviously as an African home, you know what they say. They tell me to go back to my husband's house. I don't want to be disrespectful or anything. I chose to go back to his house, and for sure Fatima is out of his life at this point. But I still want to know, how did everything go down? What made him want me back? Because remember, the last time me and this man talked, he was telling me that he wants to divorce me. How did we get here? After my parents convinced me, I go back to his house and we start staying there. Still awkward, so me and him haven't done anything from the time that I got back home, because it's still very awkward. To be honest, I haven't forgiven him, and partly I moved on with another man, because that man treated me well. I can't just ignore the feelings that I started developing for that man because my soon-to-be ex-husband now wants me back. So we start living like that, and I'm still sleeping in the guest room because my heart has not yet healed from the whole trauma that he caused me. I lost my business, I had to find a job, and that was never the plan for me. I always planned to do business. In my family, business has been running in the family, so that was my goal in life. Very betrayed by this. One day I realized that I'm feeling a bit sick. So as a grown woman, I chose to take a pregnancy test. And as fate would have it, I'm pregnant. Yep, I'm pregnant. And it's been a lot of months. It's been more than 8 months since I was intimate with my husband. The only man I've been intimate with is the guy, the driver that I had met. So I know this is definitely his pregnancy. Eventually, days go down the line. My husband notices that my energy is low, and he also suspects that I'm pregnant. He suggests, I haven't told him yet, but he suggests we go to the hospital together. When we got to the hospital, it's confirmed that I am pregnant. Initially, I just did a home test. So it's confirmed that I'm actually pregnant. But then my husband doesn't look upset about it. So I'm wondering, this man knows we haven't been intimate, and I'm only a few months pregnant. So he knows it's not his. Why this attitude? When we get home, my husband tells me not to tell the other man about this pregnancy. He tells me he's well aware that it's not his, but he wants me to keep it. This is the most weird request that I've ever heard from a man, especially. I thought, why is this man compromising like this? Is this his way to show me that he's really sorry for everything he had put me through? But no, that wasn't the case. So this man actually discloses to me that the only reason we had been failing to have a child all along is because he's impotent. And he recently found out, after he knew that Fatima's pregnancy wasn't actually his. He went to the hospital and they ran a few tests on him, and he found that he was impotent. So all along, I wasn't the problem, and he literally kicked me out of the house, saying I couldn't bear him any children, and he preferred the woman that was pregnant for him. This man says we keep this child a secret. He's actually offering to say, I'll keep him like my own. You don't have to see the other man again. Then I don't think this is right. Remember, this man left me because another woman got pregnant for him. And then now he's telling me I can keep this other man's child as a secret. You can't hide a child for so long. So I know eventually this child will be born. What if this child ends up looking like the father? But our families know. So my husband's main reason is he doesn't want to be embarrassed that he can't have children. Obviously, there's this thing in society that mostly women are the issue when people can't have kids. So he's asking me not to tell anyone. I feel this is very unfair for me and also for the other guy, because this guy was genuinely good to me. What do you think, guys? Do you think this lady should forgive her husband and they should keep this child a secret, or she should go ahead and tell the owner of the child? And also, should she take him back, or they should continue with the divorce?